Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Masha Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. In today's episode, Michelle and I are speaking with founder and product leader John Fontenot about how he is using HotJar for session replay. This is John's second time on the show, so welcome back, John. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Matt. Hey, John. How are you? Welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
That's great. And I'm trying to find out when was the last time that you joined us. And I think it's been a while. It was episode 11, which we released back in June 2021. So it's over 2 years, over 3 years. Wow. And
Yeah,
it was about Roadmunk at the time. So it's about road mapping. Wow, time does fly. Where have you been since then? Well, what have you been up to?
Oh, man. Yeah, 2021, I had just joined a fintech called Lendio that's going through quite an evolutionary process. I left there, not on my own fruition, unfortunately, January of this year. Joined another company who had a massive portfolio of products across multiple divisions, a pretty large company. Spent about 3 months there and was loving it. Loved the people I worked with, had a really good opportunity. And actually, I got some feedback recently that one of the products that I was leading there is exploding. So I feel really good about that, even just being there for 3 months. But I got a call to come be VP of product at a small startup called Terlumina in the healthcare compliance management space. And after talking to the co-founders, it seemed like too good of an opportunity to pass up. So I've been there for the past 2 months and really enjoying it. A little overwhelmed with the amount of work, but loving it.
That's great. Amazing. So congrats on the new job. And it's always good to hear that someone loved their job, right?
Yeah, no, this has been good so far.
Amazing.
That's great. And you got your other projects going on too, right?
Yeah, always busy. Still running Path to Product. We're going almost 4 years strong. And I started building another product called Research Repo, where we're trying to help UX teams and product teams make the research matter, connecting research to goals to help executives understand the value of research, which still seems to be kind of a gap even in 2024.
That's interesting.
That's right.
So how are you doing with that? I mean, what stage are you at with this product?
Path to Product has about 1,300 students in it, so doing pretty well there. We've seen several people get jobs for the first time in product, so feel really, really good about that. Research Repo is still kind of in its infancy. We put fingers to keyboard in February to start building the initial prototype, and we have about 6 beta customers that are working with us, iterating through, giving feedback. And
amazing.
Man, to get to product market fit, there's a lot of work to do. So we're not there yet, but it's steadily getting better.
Yeah. So you might join us again as a founder of a product for product people. So that might be in your future.
Yeah, I would love that.
We like to do that as well. But today we're here for HotJar. And HotJar is one of those products that also does session replay. So we're in the session replay themed series right now. This is an interesting one. Mainly because I think HotJar was maybe the first product, at least to me. Maybe I'm talking personally here, so I wonder, what people out there have heard. But to me, HotJar was like the first product that I've heard of that was doing this, and kind of got me into, okay, so we can do session replays. That's cool. Was that also your experience, or did you hear about session replay even before that?
No, my first experience with session replay was with Full Story, and we had a pretty robust integration with our data. It was all set up when I started at the company that was using it. But in my experience, it's been one of the more robust tools that I've used in terms of like its integration capability with your data, the searchability and the granularity you can get up to the reporting. I think the reporting is really powerful, and some of our PMs even like preferred that over our core reporting tools. So it was pretty
Hmm.
interesting.
Hmm. Interesting. So you actually, I think HotJar was there before Full Story. Like they started it. I don't know exactly which year each one of them was established, but you actually
Yeah.
first used Full Story, and then
Yep.
you ventured into HotJar. Tell us the story there.
Yeah. So I was looking for session replay tools for Path to Product first, and Full Story was a little bit much for what I needed. And so I found Hotjar, tried it out, got it integrated into my product, and it was awesome. For the free plan, you get up to 35 sessions a day, which was more than I needed at the time. And so it's been really good. I've started branching into other areas of the capabilities like heat maps, and haven't really gotten to the feedback stuff yet. But for what I needed it for, Hotjar I think has a lot to offer, especially if you want to get started with it. And I think their freemium package gives you just enough to where if you're like a solo founder or an early stage startup, you kind of get locked in and really liking it. And so I think they have a really good model to get kind of that entry level use case, and you kind of grow with it. And that's kind of how they monetize the platform, at least from what I can tell.
Hmm. So tell us a bit more, how you utilize it. Like if you have some interesting stories about what you utilize it for in session replay, what was the
Oh man.
outcomes?
Yeah, no, it's so good. So session replay tools in general are fantastic for this, but I love when I launch a new feature, and you can go by, like, you can filter by page of what sessions you want to see. Um, and if that new feature is on a page, you can go watch those replays and see, how are people using it? Are people finding it? Is it getting adoption? And so it's been really good for that, but also for like QA and finding bugs, right? I love launching something and seeing people interact with the product in ways that I never expected. Like, oh man, I know exactly what they're trying to do, and I definitely did not build that affordance for them to do that. I should go do that right now. And so, like, within a quick turnaround of you launch a thing, you see how they engage with it, and then the next day you can go build a fix for the thing that they thought was there. And in some cases, just the way I have my data set up, I know who the user is, so I can go in and like reach out to them and be like, hey, we launched this fix. We know that this was a bug not working, and we just want to let you know that it was fixed, and try to do it in ways that's not creepy, like they know that you're watching them. But yeah, it's really good for that.
Oh, did it happen that someone tells you, how do you know that I was trying to do that?
Not yet. I'm pretty careful about how I word things, because I'm always a little paranoid. Somebody's gonna be like, "Why are you watching me?"
Yeah. That's one of my questions when it comes to these session replays is it seems like Hotjar really plays into the watching of the actual recording, the video itself. So is that your experience with it?
Mhm.
I know there's a metadata aspect to all this, so it seems like maybe in your use case you had B2B or is it B2C?
Path to Products B2C. When I used Full Story, it was B2B, but
Hmm.
I have used Hotjar in a B2B setting before.
With the recording of the actual screens, how do you feel about their like level of like security when it comes to like privacy concerns and stuff like that?
Yeah, to me, it's an interesting gray area, right? Because I think a lot of these session replay tools do a good job of obfuscating things like pop-up inputs, and things that, like, even if there's a risk of there being PII, person identifiable information, like it obscures it pretty well, but it's not perfect. So like anything with numbers, I'm looking at a session replay, like actually a heat map right now on my other screen,
Mhm.
and even the numbers that are built into my UI, anything that could be potentially a security risk, or unveiling a PII that you shouldn't, it obfuscates. So I think it does a really good job there in terms of like the consumer perception. I think as product people, we probably know that people are watching us use tools that are built for product people.
Mhm.
But for non-product people, I would imagine it would be kind of, you'd probably get a big brother feel of, if people knew that they could see everything you're doing in their product, it might be a little bit concerning.
For sure.
But the question is, do the companies that build this product like Hotjar
Mhm.
are doing good enough job that it's we can sleep at night to say that data is not being at risk, and somehow we can pass that feeling to our clients. Is that possible even?
It's a good question. I mean, it seems like there's attempts being made to make things secure, but you never really know unless you're on the inside of this company. You always have that agent principal dilemma of we're trying to deliver value to our customers who are trying to get insights about their end users, but what's that line that we cross or don't cross? And I'm sure that could meet some gray areas there as a product person to really define like those ethical boundaries of what's acceptable and what's not. So whether or not they're doing a perfect job, I don't think any company is, but it seems like just from what I've observed in various session replay tools, that there is an effort to, that there's at least some thought that goes into it.
Are you able to go in? So if you want to see an experience with a particular page, do you go in and manually mask certain fields or certain sensitive areas, or does HotJar kind of identify those areas that might be sensitive and help mask those for you? Or is it pretty much a manual process?
There's nothing I've found where I can go in and mask things to say, hey, I don't want to see this. I don't want to be viewing this data. It seems like it's built into the tool where they've taken some pretty educated guesses at what should be obfuscated and what should be visible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
nice.
if you have a form and the form has a title to some of the fields and it says username or password or phone number or email or social insurance security number, that should be easy for them to remove, and hopefully we don't have to do the work, there to say this is sensitive. But sometimes in our products we could have, text information that could be multi-line text or things like that that might be sensitive, and they will not even know because it really depends on the context of our product.
Totally. I got this question from my wife the other day, building research repo. She's like, wait, so you're telling me you're going to store companies' research data? Like, is that okay? And so I think there's that dilemma all the time of how do you make sure that data is secure, and like when it comes to employee use of these products, like what kind of internal processes and policies do you have in place? How do you restrict usage to a needs-based role access, and how do you have some governance around that, around the use and the use of the tool and the use of the information that you see? I think that's a constant challenge, right? Especially when you're dealing with people like companies putting in proprietary data into your systems, which we do all the time with Google and Microsoft, and we don't bat an eye, right?
Our emails
and we just kind of have to
always
trust.
exactly. Our emails are sensitive, and we're using Gmail or any other of those services, not even
Yep.
blinking about it, right?
100%. I mean, like think about making payments. When's the last time someone blinked an eye at the, save your payment details in your browser?
Yeah.
Like that 10 years ago, especially 20 years ago, like people would have never done it. Think about the hurdles that like eBay and PayPal had to cross to get people to pay online. And now we're saving our credit cards in a browser. Like that's insane.
And on our phones and wherever.
Great point. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's very true. I think that over time, we, as consumers, and users, we probably got a bit more relaxed on trusting those organizations, even though we have seen, and it's still going on, that there are security breaches and information that is in risk and being exposed. So it's interesting. I mean, maybe it's a generational thing also. Maybe it's just we can't live our life without it anymore.
Yeah, it's like convenience versus risk, and people just deviate to like, well, it's convenience of paying online versus trying some other way to do it.
Yeah.
And like it hasn't maybe like people say it hadn't happened to me yet. So
yeah.
Speaking personally, I don't know if I'm representative of any percentage of the population, but I think there could be a sense of apathy too, right? Where you see government bodies getting hacked, you see data getting leaked from some of the most secure places possible. And I think to some degree, it's like, well, if somebody really wants to get my data, they're going to get my data. So so then going back to your point about opting for convenience, it's like, even if I try really hard to be secure, like obviously there's careless things you can do for sure. But in general, like if you're dealing with reputable systems that have any type of process around security or governance, especially like the Microsofts and Googles of the world, they're probably going to get hacked at some point. That's just a reality. But if somebody wants our data, look, Experian got hacked, right? Like
Yeah.
people, our data is going to be out there. So I'm a little
natural database got hacked.
Important topic, absolutely. And actually, I don't think we talked about it too much in the past, but session replay definitely is one of those things that brings it up to the surface because of the data that it not just keep in their system, but it's also replay to users. And even those users, like, can you set up, I don't know how many, is it like, can you set up different account or different type of users in HotJar that you want to show other people some of the session replays on your team, maybe, and maybe even for them, it's even more restricted than for you.
I think so. I know in their paid plans they have some filtering capabilities. I haven't used HotJar with a large team before, so I haven't really had to go through those motions of setting up security restrictions. So that's something I'd have to dig into. I'm not super positive if they have that built in.
Sure. And do you think that the feature we talked about before, where you can set up manually which areas to secure, you said you didn't find that. Do you think that might be also in the paid version?
I imagine it would be, like if I were PMing it. If you're dealing with security and restrictions, you typically have a team there, so there's more value if you're bringing people into the product and using more of it. So I would, again, it's conjecture, but I would charge for that.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that I also used, or I've seen in the companies that I worked using HotJar, so I've seen how it's been used, and it was always the freemium. So to me, HotJar is like we talked in the past about Google Optimize. Doesn't exist anymore, this product, but at the time we talked about it, it was a free product or a freemium product. And then there were the other products, for A/B testing, where so it's almost to me like HotJar is in that area of a lot of people are using it for free. And then when they want to do something more sophisticated, they may upgrade to other products. Do you feel this is still the case, or would you find a case to upgrade to HotJar in their paid versions?
Yeah, if it were like I'm tempted right now to upgrade to their paid versions just because I want more dynamic filtering capabilities. I want to be able to segment my users, especially in research repos. We're going into the B2B space. But I think the filtering capabilities, I have like sandbox URLs that I want filtered out, and I can't do that. So I can't specify restricted URLs, right? So to your point earlier, I think that's another thing you can do. If you know that there are pages that are particularly sensitive, you could restrict those URLs from being captured by HotJar. So I think that's one level of security. But two, I think from a pertinent standpoint, right? Like if I upgrade, I go from 35 sessions a day to 100, and I want those 100 sessions to be the most valuable sessions possible. And I want to know, especially if I'm launching a new feature and I have a lot of traffic, I probably want to get 100 sessions a day on that specific URL that I'm testing for to maximize the insights that I can get from what I'm trying to learn. And then you can dynamically adjust that and open things up and close things down. So having that ability to me is very valuable and worth the money to upgrade, which I'm probably going to do pretty soon.
I see. Now, the other thing I remember that was a bit of a challenging for us at HotJar at the time, it could be the implementation. So I want to hear about your implementation, is that when we were looking to find a specific session for a specific user, it was always hard for us to know how it is. And we have to go through kind of all of them in the same day or something like that until we found it.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
That is. And that's something where I was talking about Full Story. I know it's another product, but I think they do really good about integrating with your core data. And so if you have a customer ID, you can pass those parameters in through the session replay and then search those back in a field to pull up specifically that user and all of their sessions. And so I think that's something where HotJar could probably do better. I haven't seen any capabilities of data integrations to like your database, but that might just be my lack of exploration in their product.
So the idea there is that when you're saying the integration is not very strong like some other products, and therefore you don't really know who's the user that owns a specific session. But in general,
no,
you can see those sessions and you can see how users are using it, but you cannot. It's hard to pinpoint to this user use specifically. That's their replay.
Correct.
I see.
Yeah, I've found ways around that on my path to product because it's consumer based. But yeah, like the native ability to search, right? It's not as robust as some other tools.
Do they have some type of integrations with other than recording the session?
When you look at their integrations, they have several data platforms they integrate with, like Zapier, Mixpanel, Amplitude. There's different things that you can use, but they even have like a webhook. But outside of that, there's not, from what I've found, like a real way to like natively integrate your data to where it's more searchable and filterable. So it seems like they try, but it's not quite on par with some other products.
I see. Okay. No, this is all really interesting because this way we're doing this podcast to share with people, what's strong about some products and why they would use them versus what might be improved in some of those products. Great.
In terms of strengths, just one thing I would call out is I think they do a really good job within the session replay experience itself of showing, if you've added surveys or feedback, which also is included in the free plan, where those were answered in the session, if there's rage clicks, U-turns, if there's certain clicks, but you can also highlight certain areas. So if there's a specific spot you want to highlight and share with people, it's really easy to do that. And there's some nice little built-in emojis too, where if people want to see where bugs have popped up or where happy experiences or negative experiences are, you can quickly find those if somebody shares a session replay with you.
Oh, so sharing and collaboratively working.
Yep.
Oh, that's
so I could take a HotJar recording of where a bug popped up and send that link in a Jira ticket, so my developer counterpart could see it, which is a pretty cool use case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. When we started thinking about it, what are the typical personas that would be doing session replay? Me as a product manager, I have not done it in my career. So we were wondering, do product managers, are they geared towards session replay or design or support? Does this serve like multiple personas inside a business? Have you seen other people use it?
Yeah, we had a pretty strong culture at Lendio of like dedicating time to across the functions to look at session replays. Even up to our executives would watch them, and sometimes annoyingly so, because it's like, dude, we're trying to work. Like, stop sending us sessions every 2 minutes. But no, like we had our product marketing team would do it to see adoption. Our user experience team would watch them to look at usability issues. PM spent a good bit of time watching stuff to just observe post-launch experiences with the product. Every once in a while, developers would get in, but typically it was like PM, UX, PMM. Like in companies that I've worked in that had a QA function, QA was in there quite a bit too.
That's nice. Yeah, as we're learning more about the different products out there, we're hearing similar stuff in terms of even customer support, customer success can leverage a tool like this. It seems very dynamic where anybody can gain sorts of insights from it.
Yeah, exactly. We talk about customer support to find specific bugs for specific users, but that's it. It makes it hard if you don't know who is that specific user, actually.
It's a fantastic point. And so that's why I think, to your point, like when people look to upgrade, it's like when you want to get to those fine-tuned details, especially if you're at scale, right? If you're a large consumer company or you're like an SMB and you have a ton of users with like high frequency, that's probably where you start seeing some of those upgrades to more robust platforms where you can get that direct integration and get user IDs or whatever that granular level of detail is. Really helps for segmentation too, because if you have access to that metadata about the user or the customer account in B2B, and you're wanting to slice and dice data at scale through these platforms, which some of them can do very well, that's something where you do need that tight integration to your database.
Does HotJar offer anything on aggregate when it comes to If you're speaking of scale, if you are at scale and you have a lot of customers using particular pages in your application, the job of identifying insights and actually taking action on those insights can be difficult. So does Hotjar do any sort of aggregation when it comes to this stuff? Like, hey, this is what typical patterns that we're seeing on this page are, and here's how you might address them?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So there's like free aggregated data, and then there's like upgraded stuff. So you have a dashboard that's built in that shows how many sessions are on what pages. So you see which pages get more traffic, average time on each page, bounce rate, stuff like that. But then once you want to start filtering the data in terms of like country of origin or city, browser, device, or like other specific filterable data, that's when you have to upgrade. So I know there's ways to get data in. I just haven't really gotten that far in it, but they do have insights and trends. So there's two sides of like aggregated data. They have trends of things that they see happening all the time, and they try to surface that up to the forefront for you. And then funnels help you kind of see typical user patterns through your product. So that's kind of the aggregation level data that I've seen.
Okay, cool. We're always talking AI here too. So it looks like they don't have they have a new AI feature for surveys, but it doesn't look like they have, kind of AI assistance in order to help bubble that stuff up. So,
Well, at the time when I used HotJar, I don't think they even had this type of aggregation. So it was every session on its own. And I saw the first aggregation in full story. So it's great to hear that now they do have some type of disaggregation. I don't know if it is comparable or not with full story. Is that something you're able to assess?
It's not quite to the extent because of the dynamic filtering capabilities that they have
Right.
On full story, but it's very similar.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, these things have evolved a lot in the past few years, and we actually have seen that many of the data analytics products also have session replays these days because they already captured the data. So why not replay it, I guess? But HotJar is one of those products that started from session replay rather than from data analytics. So they are all kind of like seems to converge and become those like these products that supposed to do everything for your understanding how your product is working.
It seems like everything is converging into a super app across most domains, but I think it's a very interesting insight there because like Pindo started from like a very quant perspective, and now they're moving into like feedback session replays and stuff like that. And now it's like Hotjar came from the other angle and with session replays, and now it's introducing surveys and feedback and panels. And so you mix in things like user testing and maze, and you get all these like different features. And yeah, it seems like everyone's racing to be the super app.
Yeah, yeah. But HotJar does have a lot of user base. Their user base is pretty big as far as I know. So that's something that goes for them for sure. Great. We always ask our guests about, if you remember from last time, about top 3 most liked features and top 3 least liked features or things that they have to improve on. I think you already shared some of those things that you think they could improve on. Do you want to share more with us?
Yeah, I think like one thing I haven't played with yet, but I really want to get into is they do give you like 3 free user feedback sessions, right? They have their own panel, kind of like usertesting.com or Maze has their own panels to where you can set up usability tests or user interviews. And so I wish throughout their product there was like a little taste of freemium for each feature, so you can kind of get your feet wet and kind of hook you, right? But so much of it is truly gated to where you can't see any of it, and it makes it hard to grasp. Well, if I'm going to upgrade for this value, what is the value that I'm actually getting? Like when I used usertesting.com for the first time, I was like, yes, if it is in budget at any company that I'm at, I'm getting that product because it is incredibly magical. So I'll just throw that out there. That's the plug for them. But yeah, I wish that I could get the little taste of value first, and then second, I think their pricing page is quite terrible. because they have a lot of features in the product that I might upgrade for. And I have no clue looking at their pricing page where that threshold is for some of those things that I might want access to.
Mhm.
So shout out to the product or product marketing team. If you're listening, probably want to make that better.
Yeah. So it's interesting thing about the freemium that, so you're saying rather than give me the option to do like a vertically slice it horizontal, meaning, or no, instead of horizontal, slice it vertical. I'm always confused between these two words. Not English, not my first language, but meaning that some of those features are allowed, but many other features are not allowed, versus allow me all the features, but with a smaller volume, right? So you can actually see and get value for all the features rather than just those features you allow me to use, which is really interesting. This is another interesting topic when we look at how do you structure a freemium versus the different versions, and how do you get people to actually know and understand your product, even though you don't give them the full-blown product.
And I mean, if you have value and you're confident in the value that you've created, you should want somebody to taste it, right? It's like, well, why do they give free samples at Costco? It's because they're confident that if you taste them, you're going to want them. So you're going to buy the box, right?
And also
to me, it's the same thing.
People just go to the store just for those, and then they start buying other stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's true. And you're probably always going to have those customers too that only go to Costco for the samples and they never actually buy anything. They just, pay the membership for the free samples. That'll probably always happen in premium products, but I think more times than not, you're going to look and be like, oh man, I got to take a box home with me.
Yeah. It's funny. Last time we went to Costco, I saw this guy outside, unrelated to session replay, everyone. So, and he had a huge cart full with stuff. And then he took a picture of it. And we were like thinking, is he going to put a post on his Instagram saying, I just came in for the watermelon and look what I got?
Yes, that's it. That's it. That's the Costco meme.
Yeah.
I know for me, if you see me taking pictures of something in Costco, it's because I'm asking my wife, hey, are we getting this?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Do we need something that's large?
But it's interesting to learn from that on product management and how do we build the product, our products, and structure our products. Because at the end of the day, we are consumers, and we want also in our products to help our consumers to consume more of our product and come again. And it's interesting to learn from someone like Costco. If they do session replays of us running around Costco and
they record you run around the store, right?
They might.
They heat map the store, right? So they can see where everybody is.
Oh man.
They were ahead of the curve in SaaS and product-led growth, right? Because that whole subscription model of pay that annual fee and now you get access to our products.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn there. Choice paradox is important. Limiting a person to certain choices, that comes into product as well. Don't overload your customers with options. People think a lot of options are great, but if you limit those options to a few, then it actually makes their decision a lot better. So when it comes to like pricing and stuff like that, and obviously different plans, more plans aren't always the best outcome. Limit your plans, make them optimal for your customers and stuff. So
one analog to not take away from Costco: don't move your UI around like they move their products around the store, because it doesn't work the same.
That's a good point. That's a session replay analogy, right? So the user actually goes in and doesn't get lost, and then they could use some session replay. So there you go.
Well, that's quite an interesting question, because when we started this series, we're only thinking about digital products and session replay for digital products. Are there any products out there that are session replay or the equivalent of with physical products, with IoT, and with consumer products, right?
Interesting that you mentioned that, Moshe, because I hired a PM kind of midway through my time at Lendio, who came from a IoT startup where they were doing the same thing, where they were putting sensors in the store, and instead of video, they were tracking motion through the store to understand how traffic patterns worked and how that impacted purchase behavior. And so I thought that was super fascinating. So that stuff out there is being worked on.
Yeah. Similar like to traffic lights that you see how much traffic is going on the street to do the same thing in the store. Very interesting. Very interesting. Matt, do you have any other questions to John about HotJar or anything?
I've used HotJar a little bit in my past for like analytics when it comes to like equivalent of maybe Google Analytics, but just analytics in general. I mean, what's your take on HotJar's out of the box analytics capabilities?
I think what you get out of the box for free is pretty limited in that regard. Again, when I upgrade, I might be able to put an addendum to the to the episode and give you some more feedback on some of their paid features. But I'd say it's mostly pretty qualitative. They do give you some things around per session. One thing I think that's really interesting is they give a relevant score for each session replay based on the actions taken, the pages they were on, how many pages they viewed. And so you can see by country which session replays had low relevance, moderate, high. And that's a way of like filtering replays that might be interesting to watch. So there's some things you can infer from the limited analytics that they give you, but like they'll show you what type of device, what type of OS they were on, what page they land on, what pages they exit on. So there's some good stuff like that. But in comparison to some other tools, what you get for free out of the box is, well, it's free and it's out of the box, right? You have to pay for those other tools. So it's pretty good for what they give you for free.
Yeah, that's essentially what I was trying to get at. A good entry level. A good follow-up question is, what might be the first step if you're looking to implement session replay in your organization?
Yeah, I strongly recommend it. Like at every company that I joined now, since the first experience with it, I'm like, what do you use for session replay? Oh, nothing. We need to get that in the product now because we need to see how people are using the product. Yeah. And the question is, well, what do we get from that? I'm like, well, you can see exactly what they're doing in the product. You get analytics on what pages they're viewing, what actions they're taking. And if you can't see that and you don't have any type of like quantitative analytics, then you're flying blind. Like, how do you know what's actually going on without having to ask for static queries from your developers every time you want data, and then it's outdated because you can't see it in real time?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Well, that's good stuff. I think that's all the questions I had. How about you, Michelle?
Yeah, amazing. No, where can people reach out to you these days?
You could find me on LinkedIn at John Fontenot. There's not a ton of John Fontenots on LinkedIn, so I should be one of the first that pops up. That's probably the best place to reach me.
Perfect. And as we said earlier, we might have you again when your product is, getting a bit more traction and we want to hear more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come back on, and fingers crossed that the traction is gotten.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, John, for coming back on the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Michelle, and thanks to all the listeners, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.